Outside of the office of my member of parliament, there's a sign that says he's my voice in Ottawa. Well, he's done a pretty poor job of being my voice in Ottawa. So poor, in fact, that I've decided to make a series of videos in which I do put my voice out there. This is what I would say if I could stand up in Parliament. Fellow members, none of us are old enough to remember the First World War. It has become nothing more than a picture in a history book. However, echoes of that great tragedy persist to this day, and it's time that we summon the courage to at least look at some of them. May of 1916 saw a dramatic measure put in force. It was called the Business Profits War Tax Act. You can look it up. It was a temporary, and I have to emphasize strongly, it was a temporary, not meant to be permanent, income tax imposed at an unprecedented time in history. The cost of a modern industrial war on the scale of the First World War had never been seen before. Canada had debts to pay. So this temporary measure was brought in. Income tax was meant to be temporary. It was supposed to pay for the First World War and then be done. Prior to that act, 85% of federal revenue came from corporate taxes, tariffs, goods and services, and postal rates. The new income tax threatened Canada's position at the time of being one of the lowest taxed countries in the entire world. That's right. In 1916, we were one of the lowest taxed countries in the entire world. But the urgency of the war made it necessary. It was passed into law. And here we are now, over 100 years later, and the temporary measure is still here. Today, our world is much different than it was in 1916. There's no way we could ever hope to believe that a tax on postal rates would meaningfully contribute to federal coffers. Today, about 50% of federal revenue is personal income tax. That's up from 2.6% in 1918 when World War I ended. How did we grow from 2.6% to 50%? What went wrong? Well, I'll tell you what went wrong. Since 1918, taxes on corporations have declined, while personal income tax has skyrocketed. We traded taxing corporations and the wealthy for taxing income tax, everyone else. Time to put the brakes on this trend. In fact, it was time to put the brakes on this trend a long, long time ago. We need to go back to a time when personal income tax was much lower. I don't think we can ever go back to 2.6%. I don't see that being possible. But we certainly can halt any further increases and look at a gradual scale back of personal income tax. To replace that, we're going to use what used to generate the revenue, taxes on corporations, and taxes on the wealthy, especially the wealthy. Currently, Canada has far fewer Canadian-owned companies than it did in 1918. So we need a tax on foreign ownership that is above and beyond the regular taxes imposed on all corporations. Oh, you can't do that, you say. That will drive away investment. Okay. If a foreigner doesn't want to invest here, that's fine. His company can be replaced by a Canadian company started by a Canadian who hires Canadians and who spends his money in Canada. Instead of taking that money out of the Canadian economy to the US or Brazil or Japan or wherever else it goes. Canadians are intrinsically a pretty smart bunch. They don't have any problems starting a business. Lots of people have started businesses in Canada. Lots of people have made very successful businesses in Canada. And lots more will do it if the need is there. Don't deny Canadians the ability, and certainly don't deny them the opportunity to better themselves by starting their own businesses. Currently, the way the system is set up, we favor large corporations, mostly foreign owned, instead of small independent businessmen. We don't favor the guy who owns the jewelry store or the guy who owns the hardware store or the guy who has the snow plow and clears people's driveways. We don't favor them over the corporations. We favor the corporations over them. It's wrong. It's got to stop. New taxation system needs to be implemented in which the corporations pay their fair share, in which foreign corporations have a surtax above that, and in which wealthy individuals are going back to paying their fair shares. Billionaires don't exist. Billionaires are taxed at 100%. That needs to happen. And all of this income from these proper streams will offset the cuts we can make to income tax, which will help ordinary Canadians, working class Canadians, to better their lives, to purchase things and generate things in our own economy. We will get increased tax revenue streams because ordinary everyday working people will be buying things because they can afford to buy things because their taxes are lower. That's what we need to do to fix the country's economy, not continue the trend of cutting back on corporate taxes and of giving corporations grants. No. Let's start using some common sense once again, please. Let's go back to the way things used to be, where income tax was low and corporate taxes made up the difference. Thank you.